This is Wild Nevadacast, and I'm Dave Santina. Thanks for joining me. Today, I have a special person who I have been pursuing in one way or another for this show or the original Wild Nevada series for a long time. It's Sydney Martinez, who, when I first realized we were going to bring back the Wild Nevada series in 2017, after years without making new shows, there was only one person who I knew I wanted to talk to, and that was you. Because at the time you were working with the state, with one of our supporters, one of our funders, and I had read a lot of what you had written, and you write exciting, passionate material. You really love the state of Nevada. And so I thought, well, Sydney would be a great guide, a great host. Let's get Sydney. And it didn't happen until like last year.
I know. Well, thanks for having me today. I mean, I couldn't be more excited to have been a guest host on Wild Nevada and here with you today.
Yeah, that was funny how much we talked about you when we would consult with you, and you'd give us suggestions and all this, and all I kept thinking was, we got to get Sydney on.
I know.
And then it
finally happened.
Finally happened, and of course, on an episode that I wasn't in.
I know. It's so funny.
So this is my first chance to actually say I get to have Sydney as a guest.
Our dream is realized. We're here together. It's great.
Yeah, finally. So I'm happy for that. Now, when I met you, you were working in the state, but now you've left that office, and since then you have started really your own brand, which is perfect for displaying your passion for the state, your knowledge, your love of the lore and the stories and the history, as well as just the physical beauty, and that's findingnevadawild.com, correct?
That's it. Yeah, that's my website. So I've been really excited to be kind of shaping that brand of my own. I have so much, learned so much throughout my travels, documenting and researching and photographing Nevada and just meeting with really amazing Nevadans, personally and professionally. So I'm excited to have a home for all of that.
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed comes around a few times within there is that you write a lot about how people from other parts of the country or the world really misunderstand this region, and you promote it from a position of passion, and so you're kind of changing people's minds, I think, a little bit about what's out there.
Yeah. So, that is definitely a strong narrative on my site, findingnevadawild.com. I have a blog series called Legends of Lost Nevada, which is really cool because it's kind of threading together these interesting people that are living in some of the most far-flung places throughout the Nevada Great Basin with a lot of really interesting threads of history. So, Nevada gets beat up a lot. To me, the most interesting places are its really remote, like extreme isolated corners. And it takes a little bit of a sharper eye to see the potential in a lot of those places. All these places in the West are so iconic, but Nevada is always like the last on everyone's list. So it's been fun to really kind of pull back the curtain and, really speaking to the people who aren't necessarily the casual traveler, but people who really want to get out there and find these incredible experiences that surely await.
Yep. And, you do it with a style. Your writing has always had a flair that I enjoy.
Thank you.
So, I love just the way you describe what you see and how it feels to you. And just one example, you were talking about the Berlin Ichthyosaur State Park, and you wrote about the ichthyosaur, and you said, picture this, a 40-foot freaky-ass sea-swimming reptile that basically resembles a terrifying, pointy-faced, long-toothed dolphin.
That's right. That is what it is, yeah.
I love that. It made me laugh out loud. It was great.
Yeah, maybe Great Basin Brewing Company needs to get in on that description with their icky. I don't know. Maybe there's a potential there.
There's always potential.
Right.
Always potential. But that sort of wry approach combined with the passion that you have is fun to read about. And so
Thank you.
And you cover all kinds of material. Legends of Lost Nevada is a really interesting resource for a lot of stories, many of which, maybe most of which, I had never heard.
Yeah. I have always, Nell Merbarger, who was like the first original desert woman badass explorer. She was really around in the 1950s, and her mission was to go to places to meet with people who were part of some of Nevada's most significant threads of history. So people who were still living during like the Goldfield boom in the 1950s, she'd go out and find them and meet them in the desert. So she's always been a really big inspiration of taking a second closer look a little bit, but it's been fun to read her book and become a little bit more re-inspired to go find some of these places for myself and see what's still there and kind of breathe some new life into a lot of those locations. But the mystery of Nevada, I mean, it's such a natural venue for mystery out there. And so it's fun to kind of connect those dots and pull people in, the people who really want to see it, you know?
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. That was my messing with my microphone.
All good.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely. And what's the book that inspired you? You mentioned her book, but what is that book?
Yeah, it's called Sovereigns of the Sage. And so she quit her job similar to me and decided to go pursue this life exploring predominantly Nevada's Great Basin. And so she drove around solo in a station wagon during the 1950s alone to a lot of these places in rural Nevada. And her compilation of her life's work through Desert Magazine is in this book, Sovereigns of the Sage. So it's like a compilation of all of her articles she had written for the magazine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for someone listening or if they're watching on YouTube, is that a book that's currently available?
It's kind of hard to find. I think I ordered mine on eBay, but yeah, she definitely lighted my way. That's for sure. You know, going out there, and I have seen and explored so many places throughout Nevada, but it kind of was seeing things through a different lens, you know, and finding these little nuggets of kind of rare information that Nevada's already misunderstood, but finding these pieces of, you know, threading people and natural history and rock hounding and hot springs and dark skies and, you know, all my favorite things together in one story has been really fun. So
yeah, no kidding. It's and there's a lot. You have there's a rich tapestry of stories on this site, which is how many years you've been working on this?
It's been going for about 2 or 1.5 maybe now. Yeah. So I have my blogs there, which is really cool. But if you don't want to read them, I've been recording them. I call it a podcast. Really, it's just like a audio component to my stories. But some people don't like to read, so they have an option to listen to it on a podcast I'm recording, and then I'm able to kind of pull in some of the rock hounding piece when appropriate. But yeah. It's all coming together on my site. So
how do we listen? Where do we get that?
So you can go to my site, findingnevadawild.com. The player is embedded in the blog, or you can subscribe on SoundCloud or Spotify.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're just not feeling like reading, or if you want Sydney to lull you to sleep at night with a story,
that's right.
You can listen as you chill out. But
exactly. Yeah,
I like it. You also have, great photos.
Yeah.
I assume most of them, if not, I guess some of the black and white ones are not you, but I would imagine most of them were your photos,
all
right?
of them. Yeah. So my husband and my dog Elko and I, we used to joke, but it really is true. We've spent probably more nights in the back of our truck than we have in our bed at home. So, and our dog has seen more places in Nevada than I think most people. But we go out, and that's, our happiest times have been way out in the middle of nowhere with nobody else around, camping next to a hot spring and looking at the Milky Way. And it's been really fun to go back and shoot a bunch of new photos, and it's been great.
Yeah, you mentioned hot springs. I first really thought of you as the hot springs expert in the state. Excuse me. And we actually used one of your articles that you had written years ago as a guide for a hot springs segment.
I think that's been used a lot of times. Yeah,
I think it was 12 Mile Spring, I think was the name of the spring. And we were going to walk to it. It was roughly a mile hike on a dirt path that was not really passable by most vehicles. And so we knew we'd have to walk and talk for some amount of time. And Chris Orr and I are not hot springs experts. And so we're like, what are we going to talk about for this segment? Walking, we can just BS, but nobody wants to hear that. Let's try to find some content. And your story was about the etiquette of hot springs.
That's right.
And man, did that come in handy. And in fact, if I remember correctly, I certainly hope I'm right, we credited you in the show as the author of the article because we did not want to pretend as though we knew these things ourselves, because that would just be stealing. So we referenced a number of the rules as we were walking, because it gave us a subject to talk about besides, don't fall into that creek. Yeah. And so we did, and I learned from that article about what to bring, not to bring glass containers, and not to worry if you show up to a hot spring and you've got somebody in there who decided to go without clothes that day, and sort of the culture of it.
Yeah.
And also, I learned that you don't really It's like Fight Club. You don't really talk about the hot springs.
No,
You know,
no.
the first rule of hot springs is don't
Don't
talk about
ask.
hot springs.
Exactly.
So you don't tell openly where they are. It's kind of similar, I thought, to petroglyphs in that sense that,
That's a good
the
comparison,
people
yeah.
who appreciate and respect them and really love them can find them if they want to, but you don't want to make it easy to find so that people who will disrespect them can easily go and ruin
Yeah,
them.
right. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, and I think a couple years ago, I guess, gosh, it was coming close to 10 years ago, that was like our whole life. My husband and friends and I, we would study maps and go out and find all these places. And I think we've been to most of the soakable sources in Nevada, but I think they're saying it's closer to 400 now. It's one of the most geothermally active places in the world. It is the most geothermally active state for sure. And just like a lot of Nevada's best features, with public lands and everything, sometimes they can kind of be a little bit loved to death. You get out there and, you feel like it's yours and you can just do whatever you want.
Right.
So I'm really glad that resource exists to kind of help guide people who just don't know and are curious about it. But yeah, man, that's a wonderful arena out there to do pretty much whatever you want, hot springs included. Yeah.
Yeah. Soakable sources. I had not heard that term before.
Yeah. So it's so funny because we would obsess over these maps and go out there and chase down, drive all these crazy, like the last car on it was probably a wagon. And, we'd show up and it'd be like a muddy field. And sometimes you show up and it's like this amazing stonemason tub that some rancher has taken care of for 5 generations.
Wow.
And, there's still a lot of secrets out there. So
Yeah. Well, you found most, it seems, because I have come across over the years many images of you chilling out, or maybe not chilling out, maybe heating up in a hot pool of water somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And
I know my husband and I joked, this is our biggest fantasy, just being in the middle of nowhere with no one else around, just in this hot spring with under the stars. But to some people, that's like their worst nightmare, right? They're like terrified of being out there and doing that. But
right. I have
our happiest day.
I have a wife who would probably join in that point of view. Like
that's okay
it
too.
scares her to be out in the open like that with nothing around.
Yeah.
And I get that. I mean, I'm comfortable with it because of doing show after show after show over the years.
Right.
But before that, I wasn't going to choose to
in.
go out
Yeah.
and check out the middle of nowhere because I just wasn't interested in it. Didn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
Now I get
Yeah.
it. I get it. I understand.
Well, and that's what's so fun about my site, findingnevadawild.com, is, that you nailed it. That really is the narrative in almost all of the stories, is that, most people just see this dead, empty, desolate, barren, but, to the sharper eye, there's petroglyphs and hot springs and amazing cultural sites and hiking. And the best part is, we hardly run into anybody else. I think we're a little spoiled now. Anytime we go anywhere outside the Nevada border, we're like, let's leave. Like, we're so overwhelmed. We're so spoiled in Nevada.
Yeah, you do get to kind of pick your fun when you're in a place that's this large and this, relatively speaking, empty.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
And you found some really out of the way places. I remember one story I saw you did about, I think it was not an aviary, but it was like a station along a path on the eastern side
that's
of the
Hock
state.
Watch.
Hock Watch. That was it.
Yeah. So they're an incredible group. They're out of the Salt Lake area, but it's called Hock Watch International. They've been around since the 80s, surveying raptors because it's an indicator species. So if something's wrong with the raptor population, that's an indicator that there's a larger environmental concern happening. And so they have survey stations all around the world now, but this one that's pretty much right on the border near Wendover, as in the Goshute mountain range, and it's called the Goshute Hock Watch International Field Station. And they have permits to survey and capture birds, and then they release them back on their migratory path. But the work they're doing is just like fascinating up there. Anybody can go do it too. It's like not like you have to be a media person or anything. You can just hike up there and go hang out with the biologists, and they tally the birds flying over, and then they trap some of them and then survey, a bunch of different things, their tail feather length and their breast fat and all kinds of stuff. And then they re-release it. I mean, it's like fishing for birds. It's crazy.
Yeah. Catch and release.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible. How far or how tough a hike is that to get to it?
It's it's steep elevation gain. It's like 2 miles, but it is like you're going straight up the mountain. Yeah. We've done it a couple times. My husband and I did it in September 2022. which is right during their fall migration. I mean, they survey like tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of birds in peak migration. It's cool because those mountains are almost like a funnel because you've got the Bonneville Salt Flats to the east, and then the way those mountains go over the Goshutes, it kind of just like pushes all the birds right over their field station.
Wow.
And then they have, kind of like a decoy bird, and it catches the raptor's attention, and they come in and trap it, and it's just like crazy. It's so cool. I've always loved birds, and I can definitely bird nerd out up there.
Oh, fun. Yeah. Bird nerd.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Is there any place you haven't been yet that you still want to go?
The Oahe is kind of a blank spot for me.
Really?
I've never really been up there. I always go over to Denio, or I'm kind of over in the Jarbidge area, but that north central region I've always kind of wanted to check out. So
Okay.
yeah, that's on my list. Yeah.
So future content for your
That's
website
right.
for people to keep an eye out
Exactly.
for the Oahe
Yes.
range
I know there's some
info.
good jasper up there. So that's kind of my hook.
Okay.
Oahe jasper. Yeah.
Oh, right, because
Rock
you're
hounding.
collecting. Yeah. So
Yes.
were you a rock hound first, or before you started making jewelry, or did
You
that
know
just-
what? My dad and I have always picked up rocks ever since I was a little kid and just kind of admired them. In Nevada, man, it's like a geologist's paradise here. So,
Yeah.
we just really got into it a couple years ago, being out at the turquoise mines, and there's the Blackfire opal mines and Gemfield chalcedony. And I mean, it's just like anywhere you go, there's some kind of cool rock, gemstone quality or not.
Yeah, and I know that there's a rock hounding Wild Nevada episode coming.
Yeah.
This winter, that just bad timing. You were going to go on and
I
then couldn't go on.
know.
So
I was really sad
that's
about that.
That's a disappointment, but that's one to look forward to for the Rockhounds out there. And I know there are a lot. I am not a rock hound. I got to be honest. I don't. I can
Not
pick one
into
up
it.
and say that's pretty, and then I put it back
You're like,
because
whatever.
I realize I don't know what to do with it.
Well, that's better than just having like windowsills and flower beds full of rocks. Like at my house, I look like I'm
Yeah.
like 100 years old with all these rocks everywhere. But
I do have one rock on my windowsill here in my office.
Okay, that
because
counts.
A viewer, a supporter, a nice donor brought some and shared them with Chris and
Cool.
with me, and I took that one and said, "All right, thank you," and I put it on the shelf.
It's just there.
It's just there, and
Yeah.
it's pretty.
Yeah.
And I look at it and go, "Oh yeah."
what
there's
kind
that
of rock is it? Do you know?
I forgot.
Yeah.
That's my level of engagement.
Just a Nevada rock,
I'm
that
a
counts.
I'm a terrible friend and person.
Well, there's some really cool stuff out there. If you've ever been to Lunar Crater, have you been there
Yes.
before? Yeah. There's this crazy lava flow. These lava bed flows are just like unreal, and they're full of obsidian. It's like the craziest
wow.
thing ever. If you start picking up the rocks, you're like, there's obsidian in all these. And then we were just up in Denio doing some Blackfire opal rock hounding, and the road through the Sheldon National Wildlife Refuge is just like an obsidian highway. It's just like sparkling. You're like, what is that? And you get
Yeah.
out, it's all obsidian.
That
it's crazy.
is beautiful.
Yeah, it's really neat. Yeah.
I do recognize obsidian from a recent program we did up near Cedarville.
Okay.
When we went,
So you know
spent
what
the
you're
night in
looking at there.
Cedarville, went to an obsidian field, and tried not to cut ourselves because it gets sharp.
Yeah, some of that is like razor sharp. I'm
Yeah.
always like saying a prayer our tires are gonna make it through.
Exactly, scary.
Yeah.
We've had our share of flat tires, I must admit. So all right, so you're rock hound from life, from childhood.
Yeah.
You're rock hounding, but then you turned it into jewelry.
Yeah.
Did you know how to silversmith before you recently learned it?
No, I just kind of wanted to do it.
Okay.
And so I just learned how to do it. The silversmithing community is really cool. That whole artist community is just, it's this sort of mentality where rising tides raise all ships.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a really great teacher who showed me the way. And I just kind of learned it by doing it, essentially. Just kept practicing and learning new things. But I work with a couple of different turquoise mine owners in Nevada. One of them owns a Mystic Sage deposit kind of near Austin,
wow.
which is very cool. It's more Veracite, which is like a close cousin to turquoise. And then the other one is like the Royston Empire. They're the huge turquoise family. They own the Addison's turquoise mine in Tonopah and many, many, many more mines throughout Nevada. So one of them lives here in Reno, Denver Addison, and he mines all of the turquoise and shapes it. So it's really cool because when you're buying a piece of turquoise from me, you're supporting multiple Nevadans, which is my favorite part of the whole deal. So
That's a good selling point too.
yeah, it's all from Nevada, mined by Nevadans, made by Nevadans, and most of it's in the Nevada shape. I tried to do a
Yeah.
couple other shapes one time and they just didn't sell. And I thought, okay, I'm in my lane. I'm just going to stay in the Nevada lane.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move. I remember the program you did with Chris out at Pyramid Lake.
Yeah.
You presented her with a nice piece at the end of that
That's
episode.
right. I know, that was so cool. It was a Pyramid Lake shape, which was like amazing. And then Mervin, I sent him one, and I think the tribe really liked it. So that's cool. I'm happy there's some pyramid pieces at Pyramid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mervin is...
The fisheries hatchery guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's an incredible person to talk to. Man, I learned a lot from him that day.
That was an interesting episode. Yeah, that was really well done.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Thank you. But yeah, it's been really fun. I mostly wanted to get into silversmithing because I wanted to learn how to do it, but also I just wanted a pin for my own hat. I wear these wide brimmed hats that have kind of become part of my personality, and I just wanted one. And then people were like, really, I didn't ever really intend to launch a business, but a lot of people were like, I want one. So kind of just took off. It's been really fun.
Yeah, well, and that hat is kind of your brand. I see it in a lot of photos.
That's right.
You are very active on social media. I am sort of the polar opposite. I want to be more active because I do think there is some value in it, but then I actually have to do it.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
How do you arrange that for your schedule? Do you just is it the same time every day, or is it just when the mood strikes?
I think it's when I'm like, oh no, I need to post something.
Okay.
No, it's usually just when we're out in Nevada and doing our thing, and I'll take a bunch of pictures and just post on what I want to, but a lot of times it's to promote my latest Legend of Lost Nevada.
Yeah.
I just released one on the Roebling Opal, which was really interesting up in the Denio area, and what inspired it to be the Nevada Precious State Gemstone. So yeah, just kind of when I'm like, oh yeah, I need to post something, I think is usually how I do it.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
We talked about the places you haven't been yet, or the place you haven't been yet. The one that I remember reading about that was that has always been your favorite is Goldfield.
That's right. There's something about that place. I swear I lived another life there.
Yeah, and you recently did a demonstration. Was that a silversmithing demonstration as a fundraiser, right?
Yeah. So actually, the Nevada State Museum originally approached me about doing that sort of live presentation, which is like the model of my YouTube channel, where I will see a piece of Nevada turquoise that reminds me of a thread of history or a geographic location, and then I'll take it to that place and then talk about it while making it into a necklace or a pin or something. And so I've done some YouTube videos about the Pony Express, where I was in a Pony Express station and talked about it and made it into a money clip. And I've done a couple on Jarbidge and Nevada Ghost Towns and Hot Springs and all over. So they originally approached me to do this live demonstration, but it didn't work out at the museum. So we moved it to Goldfield, and it was even better because it was about Goldfield. Like that's where it should have been the whole time.
Meant to be.
Yeah. And we went down there, and it was so cool because we got to talk about, the greatest gold camp ever known and how it was Nevada's largest town, and some really interesting threads of railroad history there. And there was a group of people called the Ghouls of the Night that dug up an entire cemetery and moved it in the middle of the night to accommodate for a growing town.
Such a wild story.
Yeah, and so that was really cool. And then I made the pendant there, and it was raffled off to a participant, and we raised $700, and it went all toward historic preservation of the historic high school. So
yeah, that's pretty incredible. We got to tour that high school on an episode.
It's so cool.
Previous season, and Steve Fouts
Yes.
took us through it. And I know
Yes.
Jerry and Steve were the two guides we had for that episode in Goldfield, and they've done a lot to help
Yes.
bring attention to the beauty and the opportunities there, the recreational opportunities.
Yeah, it really is a mysterious place. And my friend John Ekman, he's the president of the Historical Society there, and so he was there today, and he's really, garnered millions of dollars in federal grant money to help preserve that school. It's one of the last of its kind, I think, in the world. And so it was really cool to just hand over $700 cash and know it went like right back into Goldfield.
That has to feel great.
It was cool. Yeah. So it's been interesting because I never really intended to do this live presentation, but Pioche was reaching out to me,
Wow.
and there's a couple other places on my radar. So who knows? Maybe it'll turn into a live fundraising tool.
Nice.
So yeah, it'll be fun.
Why not?
Yeah, just
Why
add
not?
it. Just say yes to everything and see what happens.
Maybe a PBS Reno fundraiser down the road.
That's right.
Where you can show us how to make
I'm
something.
in.
Maybe I can do something with that rock on my windowsill.
That's right. We can cut it up and make it into a pin for you.
I would probably wear that.
There you go. Yeah.
That would probably be the good use of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you. Thank you for the offer. We'll see how it works out. one of the things on your last question I have is on your many of your photos are all over your website. One of the photos, I think the same thing every time I see it, and it's you on an old-fashioned wooden outdoor toilet.
I knew this is what you were going to ask about. Yes.
And I have to know, were there any splinters?
Oh, man. We looked for scorpions and rattlesnakes. But yeah, no, it was just a plastic toilet lid. It was so funny because I really had to go to the bathroom and it was like we conjured it. It was like, oh, there's a toilet. My husband was like literally going to dig a hole for me to go to the bathroom in. And I was like, he's like, there's a toilet here. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
No
and
way.
we show up and there is actually a toilet.
I thought that was just a posed photo because you stumbled across it.
We found it and it seriously was like we conjured it from the desert. And I forget that that's my profile picture. I should probably change that. But boy, it works. It catches a lot of people's attention.
I don't want you to change it. I think it's too funny. And
it
now,
really says Nevada, doesn't it?
it's a little different now knowing that it was in actual use. I feel a little creepier now.
It is kind of creepy. Maybe we should have left that part out. It's okay. It adds to the story.
It's part of the lore. It's a legend of lost Nevada.
That's right. The legend of the lost toilet.
Yeah, the lost and then found.
That's right.
And then used.
Yeah.
So as part of your many social media posts, I came across one the other day. I have a 15-year-old daughter. She's starting to learn to drive. I'm trying to teach her all the rules. And then I see you on your way to a wine walk in Gardnerville posting while you're driving your car.
I know.
What are you doing
I was
to
in
me?
full frantic mode yesterday driving down there after work. But, sometimes you just have to multitask. That's what's so funny about this YouTube channel. My husband's like, God, talking about this history, making a piece of silver, he's like, you're really good at multitasking, and watching you like struggle through this is like, whoa, this must be really hard. And I'm like, it is. It's just like, I just black out and just keep doing it somehow.
Well, you make it look easy, so compliment to you. And I look forward to future collaborations, either here or with Chris on Wild Nevada, for future years to come, because you're loads of fun and your stuff is great online, and I always enjoy seeing you.
It's so fun working with you guys. Thank you so much.
Let's do more things.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you. So watch Wild Nevada on PBS Reno via broadcast or live stream on pbsreno.org or on our YouTube channel. Now, do you have a question about Wild Nevada, or maybe a comment or even a suggestion? If you do, please send them to me at podcasts@pbsreno.org. Thank you, Sydney Martinez, and thank you for listening to Wild Nevadacast.